Hey guys, this is the Women's Health Podcast. I am Raw Skye. This is Kiko and Larissa, and we are all raw vegans. We talk about women's health, hormones health. We changed our life with raw food, and we're going to do a recap and update of our health, of our hormones, of what we've been learning. And yeah, you guys can connect too. Welcome, ladies. Hey, Kiko. Hey, Larissa.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me again. Happy to be back with the smaller group.
It is a smaller group because I'm traveling and I put everything out a little late. So that's on me, but we're here and it's more intimate, right? So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Yes.
so I thought that we would just recap because, life is always changing and women's health is such a broad topic. I think a lot of people think of like reproductive health and perimenopause and menopause and all these sort of topics and like health crises in, women's health, but it's so much more. It's like it's who we communicate with, surround ourselves with. As women, we're social beings, and it's on this deeper level spiritually. There's other aspects to it. So what I thought we'd do is we would each of us give you guys a little recap on what we healed with our lifestyle and what we've healed throughout our life, and then an update on what we're currently doing for our hormones and health and mental health and all of that. So, Kiko, do you want to take the floor? Do you mind if I bring you up on the main screen?
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Let me see if
I'm
I can
happy
do
to be
that.
back.
There you go.
So, for me, I've been recently listening to women's, perimenopause, menopause research, and I have been listening to some of the podcasts on hormonal HRT, hormonal replacement treatment, and my first reaction was like, I don't want to do anything, natural. Of course, we want to do something always with a natural food. That's why we do this raw vegan lifestyle. But our friend Marabella introduced us to this HRT. At least for me, was the first time I heard it, and I hear more and more study about it. And it seems to be helping a lot in women's health, especially like Alzheimer. I heard that majority of people who has Alzheimer is women. That was a surprise. And apparently that HRT treatment is helping so much. I think in America, someone like Larissa is lucky. Maybe in Australia also it's quite advanced, but here in Japan, it's I spoke about it with my OBGY, and it's not at all available. So I'm open to it. For me, I am perimenopause. I still have period, but because I had a bit too heavy cycle, and due to heavy breathing, I almost died last year. So I started to take a pill called Redmina, which is what is it called, Sky? Antagonist. So basically,
Antagonist. So an
antagonist.
antagonist usually does the job of a chemical compound in the body, and usually there's a receptor site. So whether that's like a estrogen antagonist or a antagonist like a dopamine antagonist, they sit and they kind of do mimic the job on the receptor because the activation occurs in the body when the receptor's stimulated.
Beautifully said. I love it. It's better than my chat GPT.
Ah.
So yeah, so what it does is that it mimic menopause. So basically, I'm going, it's stopping my period, and I'm taking the pill for next 6 months or so. I just started a week ago, and so that it would help me, not lose weight, not lose too much blood. Well, it's just gonna stop the cycle. So my period is stopping, and I think due to that, my skin flare up started this year. I do think it's a hormonal change. So yeah, I'm adjusting. I'm adjusting for at the moment. As I mentioned, I'm taking this antagonist pill, and I'm also taking time to time antihistamine pill to calm this, acute major skin flare up. And this being said, that I've tried a lot on this raw vegan food, try to cure as much as possible. I try to ease the symptom as much as possible, and it didn't seem to do much difference. But 21 years ago, I started this raw vegan journey for my ovarian cyst. I had basically 12 centimeter. It's the size of grapefruits and size of tangerine,
Mm-hmm.
and that cyst went away completely with this thanks to this lifestyle. So it works for certain things, and certain thing I had to let go. And I think this year was a good learning stage for me to accept what's available in Western medicine. Listen to doctors and also look at the research and studies. And I've tried it myself on different, protocols. And yeah, that's where I am now. I'm feeling great. I have full of energy. Uh, Besides some skin flare up time to time, I'm doing great.
That's good. That's good. I will jump in and speak next only because I've been on, HRT estrogen therapy for 10 years and then I stopped. So I'll just run off the back of what you're talking about with the hormones. I did not know it was not available in Japan. That's extremely interesting.
It might be. It's just that yeah, it was not an option for me here. It might be for certain people, but
Oh, right. Okay. In your situation.
yeah, I mean, when I mentioned the doctors said that it was not an option for me.
Okay. All right. Okay, so a lot of my healing journey, I was sick for 32 years and I've had over 60 surgeries, 7 major organs removed, including a full hysterectomy, a complicated hysterectomy in that they took my cervix, my fallopian tubes, my ovaries, my uterus. They took the surrounding tissue. I also had a rare congenital disease where I had a second piece of uterus called endostomatosis. This predominantly is what caused me hell throughout my life. The amount of pain I was in was unbearable. When they used biofeedback on me in my teens to try and get me to calm my nervous system to get used to the pain, they used this machine on women in labor. So it's measuring big pain. Is the pain that I had was so strong, there was no start reading. So I was in a terrible amount of pain. That's how I ended up on a walking stick. I lost my stomach. I'd been on medication for this. They took out the disease, but in the end it had spread over to my bowel and my bladder and my uterus and causing massive problems. I was on massive amounts of opioids like OxyContin. I was on ketamine, Botox in the spine. And when I had the hysterectomy, it stopped the pain, but I was still sick. I had histamine issues. Now I had POTS, chronic fatigue. I had a functional neurological disorder. But when I found this raw food lifestyle, everything stopped and calmed down. I really did want to hold on to my estrogen replacement therapy. So just to recap, when I had the hysterectomy, within a few months, you go into menopause. And then I think within a year, you're postmenopausal. That transition was almost unbearable without estrogen. Like I could not think, could not function. It was like the whole world around me died. That's the best way to describe it. Is I looked out into the universe and everything didn't reflect back what I call energies. It's hard to describe. A friend of mine is on HRT who's had a hysterectomy as well. And she's like, when they give you the estrogen again, it's like everything starts like talking. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's something you take for granted. And then it's like when you look at something, it actually has this like blue is not just blue. It's actually like shining at you, makes you feel something. And it's like that goes. Anyway, hard to describe. So that was like something I never wanted to let go of, but I did have histamine issues coming up when I had my patch on, when I went on the raw food lifestyle. So I let go of the patch for 3 years. I feel the first part of that I did well. I changed the way I was eating throughout that raw food period, but in the end, I could not stop. I could not get up again. I was not feeling good. I had joint pain. I felt like I was aging really fast. And I just kept craving my estrogen patch for months. And eventually I put it back on, and I started at the start of this year, and I started to feel better and better and better, more like myself. And this neuroprotective property that estrogen has is really important to know, because they show topography scans of the brain where women's when you go through menopause, there's a whole lot of electricity that's running through people's brains throughout their life. It's pretty similar. And then they show a woman who before menopause and after menopause, and the whole top, so that whole cortex, it almost like just stops talking, like the electricity stops going through the brain. There's a lot of estrogen receptors everywhere throughout the body, not just sexual, like just not for sexual purposes and reproductive purposes. So what they show in these scans is the lights in the top part of the brain just slowly dim. Now, these scientists do say, and then afterwards, the brain is never the same. Okay. But they say that there's an adaptive property that as time goes on, that women like relearn. And it's, for me, it's a massive part to do with my memory. And that's why it's so interesting about the Alzheimer's. I've seen those studies, but most of the studies I've looked at are based on women who have had a full hysterectomy, because that's the classification I'm kind of in. But recently, my biggest update, and I have shared this, is just on this trip, I was able to get my full dose. So I could only get half of the dose that I used to take back in, because I kept having mast cell flare-ups. But if I took it away, my mast cell activation was even worse. And so I guess my body had to get used to it, but I still didn't feel completely right. Now, on this trip, I've managed to get my full dose back in. So I've had it in for a couple of weeks, and man, oh my God, I can think. I just feel more like myself. My mood is better. My perception is better. Like when I just look at things, for me, the biggest thing for me about the hysterectomy and the estrogen for me is my mind. It's not, I haven't had hot sweats since really when I first had the hysterectomy. It's helped, especially with weight gain around my stomach. But the biggest thing for me is I've struggled with memory and trauma, a lot of memory loss to do with trauma, had a dissociation and memory loss back in 2017. And so having this back in is like a godsend for me. Now, when it comes to women who have had hysterectomies, all the research says that estrogen in a woman who's had a hysterectomy becomes protective. So there isn't any studies that actually show that it makes cancer. They actually show if women who have early hysterectomies don't have estrogen, they can get cancer. They can get degenerative diseases very quickly, especially in the joints and discs and osteopenia and osteoporosis and all of this. So it's very steroidal or stimulating for the body. Now, remember, not just that I had a full hysterectomy, but I have had a huge amount of stress, chronic stress, like being very sick. So I always say I'm not here to preach that estrogen is the answer for everyone that's had a hysterectomy, or that you need to have HRT when you go through a change. I think you have to look at each person's individual journey, and I have had a massive amount of stress on the body. And I think the estrogen for me, the estradiol, is just something that helps, because my body, I'm missing more than 7 organs, like stomach, duodenum, top of intestines, a whole reproductive area. I've had my tonsils removed, adenoids removed. I've had glands, ligaments, but also a whole lot of other surgeries as well. So for me, I'm very grateful for it. I do find having a high omega-3 diet is absolutely vital for me to withstand the hormone replacement therapy. So I am doing very similar to Brooke Goldner's, and I've spoken about that. I have a lot of cruciferous, a lot of greens. I do have fruit, but not real fruit only meals anymore. I did do a bout of it in New York, but I seem to default back to a high omega-3 diet. But I will keep you guys posted more and more on how I do long term, because we're only talking about 2 weeks. I also use wild yam cream, and as having a hysterectomy, because I don't have a uterus, you don't actually need to have progesterone, because there's no worry about getting thickening of the uteral lining, which occurs in HRT in women who still have a uterus, and that's where the cancer, uterine cancer, can occur. And because I don't have a uterus, usually it's why they have progesterone as well. Progesterone is very protective. It's more of a, like, it helps you with sleep, it helps with relaxation, and estrogen is more stimulating and like kind of like an upper. One is an upper. Estrogen's like an upper, and progesterone's like a downer. If that's how the doctors used to explain it to me. But I don't need the progesterone. But I do love the wild yam cream, which does give. It's an antagonist, which we spoke about earlier, which means that it will sit on receptor sites, progesterone receptor sites, and activate that response in the body. So I know a lot of women probably don't need it, but that's my story. And I just want to stress that you really should look at what you've been through in your life. And if, your body is, I've been in menopause now for post-menopause for probably 14 years. But yeah, I'll keep you guys updated.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing. It's always so inspiring to hear your story. Yeah. And yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't know whether people really know how much I spent most of my 20s in gynecological offices, neurogynecological offices, women's health hospitals, women's health. My whole predominant life was with women's health experts to try and help from the age of, say, I think when this pain first came, you first get the bloating and the back pain, but from 17 up to 30, all my surgeons, except for when I lost my stomach, and then I had gastro team come in, and then as things got worse, cardio team, and then I'm in ICU more. But most of it was gynecologists and urogynecologists, and I don't think people know that, but yeah.
And I also wanted to correct what I said, that HRT not being available. It is available. I don't know anyone who is on HRT close to me. When I checked on the internet, HRT, the first thing I saw was, the gender issues when, men wants to become women, women wants to become women, and then they use HRT. What got confused was the
Identical?
bioidentical HRT, so BHRT. Apparently it does exist here in Japan, but it's outside of insurance, so it would not be covered by insurance. And I think the reason that it was never discussed with me was that I'm not, I don't have any menopause symptom, nor perimenopause. My issue was adenomyosis, the thick lining, which caused my period to bleed heavily. So,
yeah. And look, I've been on bioidentical hormones. I've been on hormone replacement since I was in my teens. So before I had the hysterectomy, because I had so many problems, they were constantly trying to balance it. And that was always estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and DHA. So DHA is a precursor for progesterone. So sometimes they didn't like to put the progesterone straight in. They like to put the DHA in, and then the body will use the DHA and create the amount it needs and expel the rest. And also it can use the DHA for testosterone as well. So it likes to let the body do that. But so you've got to think about it like that. And also do remember, I had a second piece of uterus in there. So I have had extraordinary hormone disbalance, which meant the reason I was in so much pain is because they said my brain would have been mapped with excess estrogen receptors. When I first put the estrogen in, you become a pain bubble. And this is what I had to be careful of. You can call it, when people are going through ovulation, they become sensitive and moody, and, that's all hormones. And when you put it back in, you can feel it. So if you give a woman who's already in pain extra estrogen receptors, your pain interpretation in the brain is quite strong. So I also have thought, and I wasn't going to go into it today, but I have been thinking that every time my hormone levels drop, so I was very steady for up until 2017. Then in a psych unit, they let it drop. They brought it back up. At the end of 2018, it dropped. And then it dropped. It dropped, and then it corresponds with me getting shingles, which a lot of women going through menopause I work with get chronic shingles. It also correlates with me getting FND symptoms back or starting. So, and I don't necessarily believe you need estrogen to stay well. I just believe you take someone who's had all these surgeries, had a second piece of uterus, and I don't think I've never wanted any other medications. The only one I ever wanted was estradiol, and I don't use bioidentical anymore for the pure fact that I knew my body would remember. There's not a huge difference anyway. It's estradiol that the body will use. It's just the way it goes into the body usually. But in saying that it's something I just feel my body needs just to stay, I think, on even keel. But I can update more as I experience it, because it is early days. But it just reminds me as it comes back on, I feel just like my memory or everything just seems to be working again, and I feel much healthier. And I just, when I looked back, and even my mum and dad throughout my life, is anytime something started to go wrong, once we learnt how I don't do well when my hormones drop, they'd always go, what about your hormones? What about your hormones? And I've let it go a few times, but for now, yeah.
Okay, and that you have to consult with the doctor and decide on the decide on the dosage, right? Like you have to speak very closely on.
Yes, and that's something else I probably should talk on is when it comes to hormone health, is doctors will prescribe something which they generally fits you and tries to increase your estrogen levels, for example, right? And so I believe, if I recall, because I had a lot of blood tests with estrogen testing, is the first half of the patch will get me up, and I don't want to use dosages here because I don't want people to be like, oh, Skye does that, I'll do this, but half dosage gets me up to about 300 on my blood test in estradiol, 300 units per milligram, whatever it is. And then doubling it gets me up to 600. Now, I think that is relatively high for a woman in menopause, but remember, we're working with a woman who has extra receptors, and the 300 seems to get me up feeling good, but 600 seems to be where I just feel like my good old self. Now, Marabella said a really important thing here where she found her right dose, but then sometimes, and I thought I was the only one who does this, sometimes she tapers it up a little and sometimes she tapers it down a little. And she goes, what you should do with it, and this is very true, is when you find your good feeling with the hormones, don't just accept what they give you. Say I still don't feel good, or I feel I'm not, it's all too much, or a lot of the time you should go up slowly. But she says, when you feel good, go get a blood test and check how much estrogen or progesterone, she's got both going on there, you've got in your system, and that is the marker you want to stay around. But I feel like hormone health is one of those things where I stay very plateaued with it, but I get, because when I used to go through different stages, I used to taper it a bit. It's just one of those things where you should feel consistently good. You should have a baseline of feeling good. And I was really using a lot of the you get a lot of like high vibrational energy from fruits, and I feel like even overeating to try and feel good. And now I've got this in, I just feel good, and I just eat because I need nutrition and not. So there's lots to unpack there, but that's kind of like the basis of like where I'm at. But yeah, you work with your doctor, but I feel like with this, it's not. See, some people, most women who have had a hysterectomy are going to be okay at about 300, 400 of estrogen. But someone like me, I'm like, I feel better at 600. So you really want to take your health into your hands and say, I don't feel good, or this doesn't work for me. That's some really good advice there.
Yeah, is this one more question? So this is super interesting. And there was a time that I was taking this product from Young Living, which is the essential oil company, and they had this product called progesterone. I've talked about this before, and that had wild yam, natural wild yam essence in it. And then the first 3 months, I was feeling really great. And then after that, it just, went back to how it was. And I didn't see any difference after 3 months. And it seems to happen to me, like when I do like some holistic way of work, maybe first month, 2 months, second month it seems to work, and then after that doesn't change. So yeah, it might be good, interesting to check that hormonal level when I'm feeling good. Maybe that there is a difference. I never did it, but yeah.
Just on that, if from my experience and the reminder from having this hormone replacement therapy put back in, is all the things I tried to help myself over the past 4 years defaulted back to kind of this level where it wasn't the whole story. And that's what you say. I think when you find something that works for you, it becomes like a huge part of your story or your healing, in that, I would try doing this, and I'm sure everything helped me, but I was trying to feel consistently good by doing, eating more or changing the way I feel. And it just kept defaulting back to not as optimal as I wanted. Now I feel like having this estrogen was like the missing piece for me. And I found that level again of just we should have this base level of feeling good. I mean, unless you're just new to this lifestyle and you've been eating crap and you've got a lot going on, and you've got to change your life. But if you're doing everything right, you shouldn't be chasing a high from all the rights, from all the things you're doing right. And I didn't know I was doing it, and that's part of the healing journey, right? But I'm definitely not here promoting hormone replacement therapy. Mine's like quite a unique story. But it's just I think what I'm promoting is that we should feel good, a general level of feeling like this wellness, and not be constantly seeking. And a lot of people are constantly seeking some sort of happiness through food, or not even food, through exercise, through a lifestyle. And yes, at the start, but then I think when you're doing everything right, you should have some sort of balance, is what.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think it's so empowering, Skye, that you share this story, because, in this raw vegan community, the default is that we go with whole food, raw vegan, cure all with that lifestyle. And, that's what I was searching myself as well. I have been on this for 21 years, and I definitely thought that at some point that this diet would cure everything, and it was true at some point for me. But last year, going through a few years of trying different method in this diet, I finally accepted this year to take the Western medicine. And of course, I am definitely aware of side effects of what I am taking, and maybe more, and I think it's important that we share this, so that, we're not suggesting anyone to do what we are doing, but, keep the open-minded attitude.
Well, I mean, Kiko, you were about to die. So, I mean, at what point is it crazy? You are more crazy not to do it. It's like we can do everything right, but we're not, living outdoors. We're indoors. There's pollution. We're stressed. We've got past lives, and you're faced with death. That's when modern medicine is there for us, right? We've done everything we can, and then it's like we take a little bit, if we need a little bit of help, and that's all it should be used for, right? It shouldn't be a lifestyle. where like, you know, you get a pill for cholesterol and you leave and go straight to McDonald's and have, you know, like that's not what, you know, we're doing everything we can. And then when you're faced with, you know, I consistently wasn't feeling good, getting sick, and you were faced with death, I think that's when you go, life tends to show us what we need to know then.
Yeah, and also the quality of life is a huge thing. That, you know, I mean, basically for 8 years, there are some times that I was doing okay, and I was diagnosed by doctor 8 years ago. Yeah, over 8 years ago, that I had adenomyosis, and you know, I was confused, like what is it, like, and you know, I was trying to see what I was always exploring different holistic method, and the quality of life was not great at all. I was like, you know, it was, my period was so unpredictable. Sometimes I would bleed so much, sometimes, you know, so little that I can be so active. And then I couldn't engage in the kind of work that I'm doing. You know, I started doing a tour guide this year quite heavily. Well, starting this year. And, you know, now I'm more in control, like quality of life, and my sense of humor is excellent, that I'm very happy to take the medicine
Sure.
to give me this.
Sure. And adenomyosis, is that what it's called? It's
Adenomyosis.
adenomyosis. Yeah, because it's endometriosis, but it's
Mhm.
it's actually in the tissue of the uterus, or the wall of the
The
like,
muscle.
yeah. So
Mhm.
it's quite painful.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you found an answer.
Mhm.
All right, let's bring it up to like our younger years here with Larissa. She's gonna update us with all of those in their cycle, and let me bring you up.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, I'm only 31, so I'm still in my, you know, I'm still having my period and all of that. But my journey really started when, at least with my hormones getting out of balance and out of whack, when I was a teenager. And um, I definitely noticed there was something significantly off with my hormones, because I was struggling with like severe cystic acne, right around, even before I got my first cycle. So, you know, I was probably like 12 or 13 when I started having really bad acne. And then I got my cycle when I was maybe like 15, I think. Um, and I didn't know at the time that anything was going wrong in my body. You know, we're kind of taught that that's just a part of puberty, it's completely normal. But I never felt like it was normal, because I felt like I was struggling with it much worse than the average people that I was friends with and all of that. And, you know, it really took a toll on my confidence and uh, my self-love and all of that. And I definitely dealt with depression as I got older. And I was also dealing with other health problems that weren't just related to my hormones, but just due to the standard American diet. And, you know, I got diagnosed with prediabetes. I had dealt with Epstein-Barr virus and symptoms that were similar to like chronic fatigue and all of that. And yeah, it was just all linked to an improper diet and lifestyle. But with the hormones, I did get diagnosed with cysts on my ovaries as well. And so, you know, now I realize the link between my cystic acne and the cysts on my ovaries, you know, dealing with PCOS and all of that. And, you know, modern medicine, they just put me on prescription drugs, and didn't really, I didn't have any knowledge of holistic healing at the time. But into my 20s, and by the time I was 23, I finally had discovered the power of the plant-based diet and raw living foods. And, you know, after searching for a natural way to heal for many years, this was finally what allowed my body to reverse all of those problems. even after experimenting with other things previously. I had been paleo for 4 years before I went plant-based, and you know, that never actually reversed any of my health problems, but obviously cutting back, like slowly tapering out the processed foods and just becoming more aware of the fact that food should be medicine and that we should be very mindful of what we put into our bodies. Like that was a great stepping stone. And but I never have felt as amazing as I do now, 8 years into, you know, the plant-based lifestyle, healing with raw foods, and being able to reverse, you know, my PCOS, having clear skin, having balanced hormones, reversing my prediabetes. I've never gotten I've never had a flare up with my Epstein-Barr virus ever again. I don't even think it's in my body anymore. Um, and yeah, I just feel amazing every day. I feel so in touch with my body and with my cycle, and it's so regular now and in sync with the moon, as I've been told that it's meant to be. Um, and yeah, it's just been a spiritual journey as well, and learning that health isn't just about the diet and the exercise, but also the energetic side of where you're at, how your emotions are affecting you, and the energy that comes from the people that you spend time with, and you know, if you're living your passion or not, and your self-love, really. So it's been such a beautiful journey, and I'm so grateful to the raw living foods and the self-love that I've cultivated to get me to where I am today. So
Oh,
to share.
I love that. Do you know, I just want to say that I don't know, it's when you have a hysterectomy, one of the only things I ever focused on was I just didn't want to be in pain. Like I was just, it was my 30th birthday. It was like this gift that was coming that I would not be in pain anymore. And the pain went. But the thing that I wasn't prepared for was the fact that a huge piece of me felt like it was taken. And it's hard to describe, but it's that spiritual aspect. It's that syncing with the moon aspect. It's to have your stomach removed or your tonsils removed is very different than having a full hysterectomy, and a huge part of who we are as women has always been in our cycle. And I remember you used to think, I'm like, I always hated my period even when I was younger, before it caused me massive problems. And it's like, it's the one thing I guess I'll probably bestow onto my nieces and be like, be grateful for this. It's a treasure. Because you, especially, I really, not that I regret it, this is my journey, but I find it really fascinating women who are in sync. A lot of you are, that I speak to, with the moon cycle. There's two stages of it. Either a lot of women I speak to are in sync, so they get their period on the moon, but some women ovulate with the moon. And that's different. But a lot of people that I speak to are in that phase, and I do like I feel a little bit in my heart like, oh, that would have been nice to experience. Not part of my journey, but it must be magical to to experience it not be a pain, right? He's like, as you were saying, when you were younger, it's like something which causes you depression and cysts and bad skin, and it's like all this trauma, and now it's turned into something so beautiful.
Yeah, it's been, you know, a completely different experience. And I feel like another layer to it for me in my journey was because I had the acne as a teenager, the doctors put me on birth control because they told me, oh, this will help with your skin. And of course, it never did. It just caused me, I think that's what really like um, helped me to experience depression. Like it really, a lot of women experience the link between birth control and depression. And I was definitely one of those people that experienced that. And I didn't know at the time about the link. Um, but when I went
Can you
plant-based,
just hang on
yeah, of course.
one sec?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's all right. Sorry, it's fine.
Oh,
Go
it's
on.
okay. Yeah. So when I went vegan and you know, uh, transitioned to this raw foods lifestyle, I got off of all my medications, including the birth control. And before I ever took birth control and before I ever got off of it, my cycle was not too heavy or painful. But after getting off of it, my body was so confused, and I would get really, really sick on the first day of my period. And this was all during like this time in my life where I was focused on healing, because I was, embarking on the raw living foods lifestyle, and everything else in my health was like so much better. But my periods got way worse in the beginning just because of how thrown out of balance my hormones were from being on birth control for 7 years. And then now I'm off of it, and my body was just like trying to find the balance. And it took about maybe 3 years for that to finally adjust and for me to not feel sick every time I got my period. And now it's just way easier, and it's shorter, it's lighter, and the more, just like the more I honor and respect my body in all ways through how I eat and daily movement and spending time with people that I love, like just the more healthy my hormones are and the easier my periods are, for sure.
I remember when I used to live in Oceanside, California,
Oh.
and at that time I was living with my boyfriend, and everyone around me, they were like, "Oh, Kiko, what are you doing for birth control?" And I didn't know much about it, and they all said that, "Oh, you have to be on birth control pill." And I remember how easily they gave out the pill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I went to like a parent. I don't know what it was. It was just so easily available, and I went to.
Was it Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, that was it. And
Yeah.
they just gave me the pill, just like without checking anything. They just gave it, and my boyfriend didn't like that at all, and I discontinued. And it's I think it works great for many women, but I think we need to check person to person, and especially, like in early, like teenager or early 20s, like we don't know what's going on with our hormone. And like pills here are very difficult to get. Like you have to get, it's getting easier now, but it took a long time to be introduced here. Yeah, but yeah, I looking back, I was thinking, wow, it's like, here, take it. It's like,
Yeah.
here, take this condom.
They put me on it when I was 16 years old. And like when I became more aware of everything that I know now about health and wellness and the pharmaceutical industry, I was really upset when I found out that, well, that it was linked to the depression that I had experienced through almost 10 years of my life at that point, to
Wow.
the point where I was even suicidal through certain periods of my life. And two, I learned that there is a link to an increased risk of breast cancer, which runs in my family. And so I was very upset when I found that out, that I was put on that when I was 16 without being very specifically told about the side effects. And that's the problem with medication here in the US. I don't know if it's like this everywhere else, but they just hand them out like any pills, any medication. And I like that you guys are talking about, knowing your body and certain things that like are from Western medicine that can be helpful in certain situations. And I've been in situations like that too, where I really never ever like taking antibiotics, but I've been in a life or death situation where I had to, and in those situations that's the best option. But it's also very irresponsible of Western medicine in this country, how they just hand it out like candy. And it was covered by my insurance, so it was free. It was so easy to get, and it just, they prescribed it for my skin, and it didn't help my skin. But as a teenager, I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, I can't get pregnant. Like, I felt really cool, and like I didn't know how it was negatively affecting me. But yeah, once I found out the negative side effects that I had, you know, been experiencing and my increased risk for certain things, I was very upset, and it really fueled my passion and my drive to live a healthy lifestyle, though. So I'm grateful for that anger that it brought up inside of me.
Yeah.
Because
Darkness does that, right?
yeah,
Darkness makes us glow in the light.
exactly. So
I have to mention this the Western medical world is so centered for men's world. And I'm so happy to hear more and more podcasts and, female doctors or OBGY researchers are, getting into it to change the situation, because, I always thought, like, why should it be women who should be. Oh, I hear echo. Is that my side?
No.
I hear an echo too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on.
I just want to close to make sure that is that. I think it's good. No, now.
Is it
I don't hear
back?
I think
I
it's
don't hear
fine.
the echo anymore.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at one time, my one of the guy that I was dating, and he wanted me to be on a pill, this birth control pill, and I'm thinking, like, why should I be doing it? Like, he was the one who didn't want to have a baby, and, like, I mean, you should go for it. I mean, there are treatment for men if if they don't want their women to be pregnant. Like, why should I be the one to risk, breast cancer, whatever the side effect there is? And now I think it's moving thanks to female OBGY researcher, shifting this
Yeah.
style.
Yeah. I was like you, Larissa. I was 15 and they put me on the pill. It's like easy. That and antidepressants. No wonder I was put on both. But the pill made me so depressed, so unbelievably depressed. I would literally not want to live. I remember being in my boyfriend's car, and it was for, I think, just menstrual pain or skin. I can't remember, maybe both. They handed out like candy for skin. And I remember being like, I can't live. Like, I knew it was, and also every time, like, I kept doing, I just get really bad cramps. And I think the problem with the pill, I was just doing some reading while you guys were talking then, is that you've got young women who are fit and healthy, and it's lifestyle, with their skin. They've got high levels of hormones, which are still not regulated because you're still going through changes in your body all through your teens, right? And then, unlike HRT, which is a very small dose of bioidentical, even if you get the chemical patch, it's still bioidentical. It's a synthetic hormone at a massive dose they're putting inside young, healthy females. And as if that's not going to cause problems. Like, that is even like when we talk about HRT, we're talking about women who are missing something and we're giving them like a small amount. And it literally feels like my body's like, oh, thank you. But these girls have enough estrogen and they have enough progesterone, and then they're throwing in estrogen and progesterone and wonder. Yeah,
The birth control pill is stronger than HRT.
Yes, I'm just bringing it up. It's so usually the pill contains two synthetic hormones, which is estradiol, which is a synthetic version of estrogen, but it's stronger. It lasts longer than natural estradiol, which, even if you get the synthetic HRT, they will use estradiol. It's just the bioidentical natural hormone in your system. And they use progesterone, a synthetic progesterone, and they're talking about regulating, and it's for acne and all sorts of things. It's unlike HRT, which is bioidentical, the same as the body's natural, usually contains estradiol, bioidenolence. But the main thing else is that it's stronger and lasts longer. So but we aren't talking about postmenopausal women here. We're talking about women whose hormones are already going through the roof. And we wonder why.
They don't even check where they are on it.
Right.
Yeah.
No. And the other one is, out of all the medications I've had to come off, and I've come off opioids, I've come off amphetamines for HRT, for ADHD, the absolute nightmare to come off, and I've seen it in Reddit talks, is SSRIs, antidepressants, and they put they just hand them out like candy. That and birth control, I'd have to say, is like literally you say you've got this problem and one of the two seems to be the rat, but people then get trapped on these, and it's literally like unbelievable what it like. It's just it's
Yeah, and really quickly, I'd love to share some solutions that, you know, could be beneficial for people. Obviously, if it's
yeah.
for the skin, you know, the raw living foods lifestyle, the cleansing, you know, healthy living, like nourishing foods are going to help with the skin. But if people are worried about, you know, early pregnancy, I feel like this solution of giving someone a pill is completely keeping us from learning about our female bodies. And there are so many ways that we can learn about our cycle and be more connected to our cycle and our bodies and nature and all of that, because it's all cyclical. And it's so beautiful to be more connected to your cycle and your body in that way when you know when you are ovulating and, you know, when you can actually get pregnant, because you can't get pregnant every single day of the month. It's a very specific time of your cycle that you can get pregnant. So I feel like it's taken away our empowerment as women to just, oh, here's this pill. It's going to screw up your hormones and your body in certain ways. But just take it because it's easy. And we don't want to teach you about your reproductive health. But that's been a huge awakening for myself to just, you know, have that empowerment and know what's going on in my body and take my power back in that way.
Yeah,
I love
definitely.
I love that. Also, we've got to wind it up in a second, but I did want to ask do you do something like your basal temperature measurement? Is there anything you do to protect yourself that you can suggest to people, or ways that they can, I know there's apps and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I use an app, and you just track your period in it, and you can also take your temperature every single day. Right when you wake up, it has to be at the same time every day, and then you can log that in the app so it can be more accurate. And there's other ways too. Like I don't personally practice this method, but people say like you can, you know, uh get a sample of like the fluid that's in your vagina, and based on like the texture of that you can tell like what part of your cycle
Heard
you're
that.
in, because it will shift like the texture and consistency. But in these apps you can also log all of that different data that you can collect about your body to get a very accurate reading of exactly when you're ovulating, and then when your period is going to come, and when you're bleeding, and all of that, to know, you know, when you have to be more safe, and, you know, versus when it's, you know, a more, oh yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what my app that I use looks very similar to that.
I use Clue.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I've been using that. Yes.
I love that. I did see recent studies. I saw some documentaries on talking about how the fluid thickens when you're ovulating, but then you can't really know, because if someone has some sort of a bacterial or yeast imbalance down there, you're going to have changes. So those apps look good.
Yeah, I think for me the easiest is to just check, or to just track it based on when I'm bleeding, and then the app like knows to tell me like the rest. And then the temperature I think is also like, it makes it more accurate for sure.
I also love how in tune, like it's right. It's this power where it's like, well, you can't. I kind of feel like if you go to a doctor and you're like, I'm so in tune, I know when I'm ovulating, and I just assuming here, but I can feel doctors would be like, well, that's not scientifically proven. You can't really know that. But this is all about taking your power back. And that's what you're saying, Larissa. I just think there's so much power in having, when you're eating raw foods, and not just with women's health, all of my health. I'm so in tune. That is women's health. You know, we're intuitive beings, and we're taking back our power here.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I'm so grateful for this platform that where we can share openly, because in Japan it's definitely a taboo to talk about things like this. Like unless I experience, like for me, adenomyosis, like if I share that, people might be a little more open to share their story, but generally speaking, they don't like to talk about it at all. And I think it's true in any culture. Like US, it's more open, but I think we should be talking about this more,
Yeah.
share, and that we can learn from each other, right?
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I'm very grateful for both of you and our panel and all our podcasts. And I'm about to meet up with Larissa in a couple days, which
Oh
is really exciting.
Excited. Yes,
That's
I'm
so
so excited.
exciting.
Yeah. So off
Yay.
to LA tomorrow. So
Yay.
Oh, yay. Enjoy that.
I will. Thank you, everyone who's been watching us, and we will be back
Yeah,
next month. It will
thank
be more
you.
organized. We'll be all together. We might have a special guest again, and big hearts, lots
Yeah,
of
thank
love,
you, Koala Mama.
and have a great night or day, depending where you are.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.